The foundation that I work for is called the Brita Maria Memorial Foundation, and it was established in 1918, just a year after Finland got independent. And it all started many years earlier. A young boy who was growing up in poverty in a rural town on the west coast of Finland, and he had 7 siblings, of who only 2 survived childhood and adolescence, and he had a caring mother. His father was a sailor, and they lived in really poor conditions. When he was 14 years old, he moved to Helsinki, to the southern parts of Finland, to find work. And 20 years later, he bought his first hardware store. So this is really a success story. He died at the age of 58, and he had no own children. And he gave over all his, what's the word? His fortune to a foundation, which he wanted to be led by women. He named 7 women for the first board of the foundation, and he also gave the foundation the name of his mother, Brita Maria. So he was a millionaire when he died, and had no own children. So he wanted to do good for children and young people by donating his fortune to this foundation. And now, 100 years later, a lot has changed in society, and as Nordic welfare societies, a lot of the things that you didn't have 100 years ago, you have today. We have a very developed welfare system, and we have schools, we have daycare, we have all kinds of systems and professions taking care of children and young people today. So what we thought would be good to do is to do a strategy work. 2 years ago we started to try to interpret Carl Herman, who was this is the name of our donator, his will in a modern context. And so we looked at what's happened in the operating environment, and also listened to stakeholders and children and young people to really try to grasp what would be the main purpose of our activities today. So that's where we are right now, actually, implementing a new strategy where we want to be more transparent in every aspect, in everything we do. We want to be professional in how we award grants, how we treat our grant seekers, or what would be the word for the ones who apply?
Grantees?
Grantees, yeah. We get 700 to 800 applications a year from organizations that work with children and young people. Private persons can't apply for grants. So everything from supporting good parenthood, to children who are growing up in bad conditions, to preschool, after-school activities, to support for the professionals who work with children and young people. We also have donated professorships to the 2 main universities in Finland that educate early childhood teachers. And so we have a broad spectrum of things that we fund. But actually today I think our main concern is that young people feel a sense of hopelessness for the future. There is a lot of turbulence in the world. We have social media that is increasingly creating stress for young people. We had the pandemic, 2 years of almost isolation. And we can see that young people are not doing very well today. So in this, the call this last September, we stressed projects that target somehow the fostering a sense of confidence and hope for the future for young people. And we are in the process now of reading the applications and hope that we will find good projects for this. Another important thing is child poverty. This is, of course, relative poverty when we talk about it in a Nordic context. But we still, in Finland, we have 120,000 children who can be categorized as living in relative poverty. And this means that they don't have the same possibilities as their friends to engage in after-school hobbies, or they don't have access to fruit and vegetables in their home, and they are less. They live in relative poverty. Yeah. So we also now are looking forward to funding good projects that target this. If we think about ESG, thoughts firstly go to asset management and the funds that we manage. We have some 500 million euros in assets, in both stock holdings and property. And in that, in our asset management, we have a strategy where we apply ESG principles, so that we rule out certain industries and businesses from our portfolio, and we also expect our the ones that we buy services from to have an ESG policy. I think that this is business as usual in most foundations in the Nordic countries today. So maybe we leave the asset management out in this context and try to focus on our the awarding of grants and the process how we work with that. We are applying to the UN Sustainable Development Goals 1 to 5, but more specifically we are using the UN children's strategy. I have the right word somewhere. 30 years ago already, UN launched a strategy for a child, what's the word? A framework for the right of children. And every country who ratified this have their own strategies, and Finland has it. So in 30 years already now, Finland has worked, we have a legislation about children's rights. So for us who work with children and youth, this is more the most important guiding principle of our work. Bringing it back to the ESG framework, I would say that everything we do is about social governance. We work with doing good for children and youth in that sector. So we also do the E in many ways, because we grant funds, award grants for projects that where children and young people get to work with projects concerning the environment. Because we know that the climate anxiety is also a big question for young people today. But social governance is mainly what we do in all our activities, I would say. Then for the processes that we have when we award grants, we try to be very transparent and open in everything we do. We also explain how you apply for grants and what the process is that the applications go through. and also we give feedback on applications and communicate very openly about the ones who get funds from us. We have also become and will increasingly work. We try to develop the processes for assessing projects and what the impact of the projects have had, because that's also, of course, important that we should try to use our money well and wisely, and assess projects the impact of the projects that we fund. It's been, I have been working for the foundation only 1.5 years, and I saw that a lot of good things have been done during the years, but there were still things that could be improved to make the activities more transparent, and so that we would see that everybody are treated equally and professionally, so I think that in the strategy process that we just have gone through, we have been more aware of the fact that we need to be legitimate and to be interesting and to be relevant. We need to be more transparent and professional in all our operations. So and when it comes to asset management, I think that the whole the world of finance has been working on these issues several years, and all foundations have these principles. But I think that probably the challenge when it comes to foundations is that we already think that we do everything according to sustainable development principles and ESG principles because we do good. And I think that it's very good that this conference focuses on this, because I think that this can be a starting point for many of us to start thinking more systematically at how we apply these principles and what we also expect from the ones who get grants from us. Do we have some guidelines for them, or for what we expect when operating with our money? So it's a good topic, and I think it's good for all of us to start thinking more systematically in these lines. First of all, you of course you have to open up really and dig deep into what it could mean in your specific foundation and for the purposes that you have. And maybe you can also use some outside help, consultant or some specialists to help you to really go in depth into what it really could mean in your own case. And then you need to get everybody on board. You need to have your board, the ones who decide, but also the ones who work in your organization, to believe that this is the way to go forward, and this is what it's expected of modern foundations, and it makes sense. For our foundation, I think that the thing that we still need to work on and that we aren't very good at is the dialogue with children and young people directly. Because somehow it always seems that a bunch of old people or mid-aged people sit around tables and talk about what children and young people need or want, or what we think that they need and want. And we should be better in involving young people in decision making and getting their voice heard in our organization and in all our processes, actually. Yeah. I think that because we have the welfare societies in the Nordics, and a lot of the maybe classic philanthropy purposes are already taken care of by the public sector in the Nordic countries. We have had to think of what is our role, so that we don't take on the responsibility of the public sector, but can be sort of risk financing new projects, new initiatives, and new pilots for that can be best practices in the future. So when it comes to children and young people, I would say that you could look at the Nordic foundations who work with children and young people to get ideas for projects that are targeted on special questions. I mean, poverty. It's obvious that poverty it's different from Africa and Finland, and maybe we could, or the philanthropy community could learn a little bit about how you have to develop your thinking when the things that you can fund are not that obvious, but you need to be smart, and also to try to find indicators for assessing the impact of your projects. I don't know if that was a good answer, but I certainly see this the philanthropy community in the Nordic countries a little bit different because of the big public sector that we have. So we have had to think about our role, maybe in a little bit another way than many other countries, I would say.